32. We're learning Perek Yud Beis, chapter 12 in Tanya, and we're about 7 lines down from the beginning, the last word on the line, which starts with Veloi, Veloi. And yesterday we learned this famous line of the Alter Rebbe that the state of mind of a Beinani is he never did a sin and he never will do a sin, and we spoke a lot about it, so we will continue. Veloi. Nikre olav shem rasha, and therefore this individual called a Beinani is not called, we don't place the name of wicked, of Rasha upon him. Afilu sha'achas, even for just 1 hour. And v'rega echad, 1 minute. Kol yomov, all of his days. But again, could he have been a Rasha before? Absolutely. Could it be a Rasha tomorrow? Absolutely. But the way he is now, if he were to remain this way, you would say this is a Beinani, and you would never apply the name Rasha to him, even for just 1 moment. So if that's the case, what makes him different than a tzaddik? Says the Alter Rebbe, Ach is where he starts. However, the reason he's not a tzaddik, because Mehus va'atzmus, Nefesh Elikis, the very core essence of the Nefesh Elikis, Shehein Esep Chineseha, which refers to the 10 levels, the Chochma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gura, Tiferes, Netzach, Chayt, Yisoid, Malchus, the 10 levels. Loi lohen levadon hamlucha v'hamamshola b'ir katana. They don't have the only jurisdiction and dominion over the small city, that means the body. They are not the only player in town. Kiyim, when are they the only player? Iser b'itim uzumanim, at certain times. When? Kemoi, for example. B'shas kriya Shema, at the time when you're saying Shema, utfila, you're davening the Shemona Esrei, shehi shas moichin de gadlus. We are informed here in the name of Kabbalah that during the time of kriya Shema and tefillah, it's something called the time of superior, supernal intellect, lemaila, in heaven, in God's heaven, in God's world. It's a time when there's extra heavenly intellect. Well, I'll explain in a moment. And therefore, v'gam lamata, so too below, when we say Shema, when every one of us said Shema this morning, and David Shemona Esrei, he shas hakoishet, it is the appropriate time, it's the right time, l'chol adam, for every human being. When he davens the Shemona Esrei, she'oz mekasher chabad sheloi, at that time, he binds his chochma bina das, his wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, lahashem, to God, lahamigdaite, to delve deeply into God, bigdulas Eizav Baruch Hu, to delve deeply into understanding God's greatness and awesomeness, ulaoired, and through the intellectual understanding on a very high level of God, ulaoired, it awakens eso'ava, the love, kirish beyesh, like a burning fire, b'chola yemoni, in the right ventricle, shebelibi, of the person's heart, and therefore the person, ledof kabo, he wants to grab God, he wants to cleave to God. B'kiyam ha'teiro mitzvah, sustaining teiro, keeping teiro mitzvahs, mi'avam, not from yira, but from love. In other words, when you're turned on intellectually, and you understand with your cup how this is awesome, God is awesome, and God is great, and everything like that. You love him, you want him. That's what he says here. When does that take place? When does that take place? Specifically during Shema and Shemona Esrei. And he adds one more line or two. This is the concept explained regarding Shema, the Araisa, which is biblical, Ubirchosel, and the blessings preceding Shema, and Shelafanel, the preceding blessings, Ulachrei, the blessing after, Sheheim Rabbanon, which are only rabbinic. Nevertheless, Hein Hachona, they are a preparation, even though they're only rabbinic, but the purpose of the preceding blessings plural. And the blessing after is L'kiyam HaKrishma, is to sustain the Shema, whatever you're supposed to accomplish a Shema, it needs kind of support. It's like the chassan going to the chuppah needs to have an unterführer, someone to carry him, because his feet are trembling. He's going under the chuppah. He's getting married. He's leaving the state of being single and independent, and all of a sudden he has to answer to a wife and all of that. So he might want to just run away. So you have someone who holds him under, called the unterführer. Get to the chuppah and stay there. And I actually saw it once at a chuppah where a chassan wanted to run away. I saw it. I was there. And Baruch Hashem, there was a good interferer and a good rabbi, and they spoke to him under the chuppah in front of my eyes, and he stayed. You know, some call it a panic attack, whatever. I'm not going into all that, whatever the cause is. But the point is, here you are at Shema. You think Shema is such a simple thing? On one hand, yeah, I love God, but you really want to be with God? You know, if it's like Isser, you want to live in the Boston Rebbe's house. You consider him a tzaddik. Are you ready? And I'm sure you
I'm ready.
Okay, good. But Chassidim would say, Lubavitch Chassidim would say, when they were in close proximity to their Rebbe, they would say, when will be the time when the Rebbe will take his face off me and not see my, piggish face, in Hebrew, chazer she ponim. Like,
You also sleep in the sukkah.
Exactly, okay. But the point is that when you talk about an intimate relationship coming from with Hashem during Krishma, the potential for such, and during Shemoneh Esrei, you need the brachas from Krishma before and the bracha after to kind of keep you there and hey, it's good. Don't worry, don't get scared. I remember when the Rebbe was giving out dollars in the 80s. In the 70s, he gave out dollars. To us, we were called tankisten. We would go on the mitzvah mobiles out to Manhattan and to Brooklyn, and the Rebbe coined the phrase that these are tanks against assimilation, to fight the assimilation of the Jewish people, to stop assimilation. So he used the phrase tanks. So we, the ones who went on the tanks, to put on tefillin and give out paraphernalia and talk to Yidden about Yiddishkeit, we will call tankisten, the tankists. We were tankists. So that was in the 70s. So the Rebbe, at the end of many Farbrengens during the week, he would give out dollars to distribute to people for tzedakah. And who would he give it to? He couldn't give it to everyone. It would take hours. He said he's giving it to the tankisten, to us tankists, since we're taking a lead role in this outreach effort, and we will be the shluchim to distribute the dollars to everyone else. That was in the 1970s, and Baruch Hashem, I merited that, and I have quite a few dollars from that time still. In the 80s, during the Farbrengens, he started giving out dollars. Then, as he was getting older, and he was slowing down. Outwardly, you could see how he's slowing down a little bit. So there was a big debate. Should you go to get a dollar from the Rebbe, or should you not? In other words, from 1986 to 1992, those 6 years, right, he gave out dollars every Sunday. So there was a debate amongst the Hasidim, should you push yourself every single week to get a dollar? I got a dollar last week. I live in Borough Park, Heights, Flatbush. It's a car ride. It's Sunday, there's no traffic. You can park and get in, and okay, you wait a little bit and you get your dollar. So why should I make the Rebbe, stand on his feet more and things like that? And there's always a debate. And some of the Hasidim felt, why do you want to show your dirty face to the Rebbe every single week? Other Hasidim argued, no. If you're not going to show him your dirty face, spiritually speaking, who else are you going to show it to? Your wife? Only a tzaddik, a Rebbe, can help you get out of your rut. So yes, you unfortunately you're coming there with you're not you've done this, you've done that, you need improvement in this area and that area. So you go to the tzaddik asking to give you assistance to schlep you out of your stuff. And that was always the debate. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this over because we're learning here about the Birchas Krishma being necessary for the experience of Shema. You have to ask yourself a question. Every day you daven Moshe. Why do we need Birchas Krishma? The answer is, but simply not the way it says here in Tanya. Why do we say Birchas Krishma Hillel? We say Birchas Krishma because we speak about the Malachim, the Ifanim, the Chayes, right? Why do we speak about the angels? Because the angels are our spiritual forefathers. So we say, look at the way the angels serve God. One group of angels bows to God. One group of angels screams. One group of angels, in other words, they all are impacted in different ways. Now, if they're angels and they are so impacted by Hashem with such awe, we who are souls, neshamas, and souls are greater than angels. A neshama is greater than a malach. Because a malach is limited, Moshe Avram, to one mission at a time. That's why the malach who came to turn over Sodom couldn't do this another mission at the same time. Sorry, chap. This is my job. God says, a malach, you're limited. If I give you a job to turn over Sodom, you cannot save Lot. Save Avram. Save Lot. Sorry. Right? You can't. That's another. I have to send another messenger. But a neshama, a soul, can do two missions at one time. Can do chesed and gvura at one time. You'll ask, how is that possible? Right? And it's a good question. The answer is because you're a neshama. A neshama's bli gvul is infinite. We're talking about compared to an angel. An angel is finite compared to an... So as great as angels are, we speak about the malachim, and people put on their pins for angels and all that stuff. You should know it's all limited. And what does it say in the Holy Torah? Lo yayidei malach v'lo yayidei saraf. God took us out of Egypt, He alone. Why? What's wrong with sending a messenger? Because a messenger is limited. So, when we say Shema, when we say the blessings of Krishna in the morning, we're saying that although an angel is limited, but look at how an angel is so committed to Hashem, is so impacted, burning up for God, screaming for God, moving for God, whatever, being silent for God, whatever the avodah is, the service is. So that's an angel. We who are davening in the morning, and we have a neshama, how much more so we should be inspired. That's the simple reason for saying Birchas Krishma. The Alter Rebbe says here another point, that although that's true, that's true, that Shema in a way needs Birchas Krishma. In other words, the simple interpretation of the blessings of Krishma, it doesn't equal that the reason you say the blessings of Krishma is because Shema needs it. No, Shema doesn't need it. Shema is independent. But the Alter Rebbe is saying Shema needs it as well. Why? Because if not, your love for God would be limited. You know, too much love is unhealthy. I know that sounds like yeah. There has to be distance. Just for a second, an aside, the whole idea of abstinence for the 2-week period through the menstrual period is, in my humble opinion, I would think you guys understand this as well, is the greatest psychology. Relax. Take it easy. Take a break. Too much of good is no good. You need a break. And it's fine. And the same too is in a relationship. A husband and a wife, you need sometimes a break. And it doesn't mean you don't love your wife and she doesn't love you. And then you need a break. And with kids, it's that way too. You need to give people space. So here we are every morning saying Shema. And we're supposed to say Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Think about God's unity. And then V'yohavta, the objective is love. V'yohavta, you shall love, a commandment. That's a very, it's intense. It's very intense. So one needs the blessings before and after to support and keep that drive going. That's what the Alter Rebbe alludes to here. It doesn't say it clearly, but he alludes to it in these few lines. Let's go back to the text. V'oz hara shebechol lasmali. And during that time, during Shema, the bad within the left ventricle, kaful v'botel l'toiv, is subjugated and annulled to the good, hamispashet bechol la'yemoni, which extends itself into the right ventricle, mechabad shebemoyach, coming from the wisdom, the chabad within the mind, hamukushonim bedulas ein sof baruch hu, that's bound with the greatness of God. So just for a moment, because Chabad, not talking about the movement, we're talking about the 10 attributes of every person's neshama that has tools and instruments and faculties. The word is faculties. Chabad is the part of the faculties that identify with God's greatness, Gdula Ein Sof, through meditation. So if someone says, I experience God through Ava, that's a certain subjective God, which can be experienced, but it's a subjective one. When you remove yourself from the subjective self and you allow the mind, and even though it's your mind, to form the relationship, then it's more objective. The love then will be more correct, because the mind tells you, is this good or not? And I'll prove to you why it is good or not. And therefore, this should be done, this shouldn't be done. So then, when that filters into the heart and it gives you a feeling, the feeling is less objective and more objective, and hence more of a correct love. So if someone just goes with love towards whatever they want to do and it happens to be unhealthy, the love element alone could lead to that mistake and that situation. Whereas if it's guided by Chochmah Bina Das, it's less subjective and more objective. Yes, Moshe.
Hey, Rabbi Dalfin, can I ask you just maybe give us an example, the practical example, with the concept you just said?
Well, an infatuation. A guy and a girl, they go into a relationship because one is infatuated with the other, and they develop this emotional strain, and it could be disastrous because there wasn't even if we don't speak about an infatuation, but this idea of practically in dating today, especially for the young people that are dating and meeting people, there needs to be a distance. That's why the whole idea of the Shema Negia, they make this whole issue of Shema Negia. Of course Shema Negia. See, again, the Chabad approach is, of course Shema Negia, but not because it says in the Shulchan Aruch you're not allowed to touch a girl. We know you're not allowed to touch her. That's not the point. It's unhealthy for you psychologically to begin your relationship through touching the girl, because then you're already emotionally bound. Excuse the expression, you're in bed already. So what's the difference? It's a matter of time. It goes from touching to kissing to hugging to kissing and to ending up in bed. No, you don't even know if you want to be with her the rest of your life. So Shema Negia is, of course, halachically, it's forbidden and all that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the idea that it causes the emotions to overtake the mind. Whereas, Moshe, if you date and you meet and you're distant, you stay back, and you have to do things to create that distance. Because it's very easy, if you like a guy or a girl, or you like a girl and all that, it's very easy to allow your emotions to flow, even without alcohol. Then, as you develop, so the first few times, or more than the first few times, whatever it takes, depending on the people, they use their cup. They use their mind. and they hold back. And they do things to hold back. I'll give you, you asked for a concrete example. I'll just give you, I'm a man with a white beard today, but looking back for 45 years or whatever I was dating and going out, I remember, so when I had a car, the question was, okay, I'm driving and the girl's next to me, so when I'm driving, I'm concentrating on the road. What if I'm in a taxi? Nope. So the back is one seat. There's a girl and a guy. These were issues that I thought about. Not that there was anything forbidden, but I didn't want to begin my relationship with that emotional charge right away. I want to begin it with the cup, the head. This way you're able to discern. Once you understand the situation and you come to a conclusion that this is the right situation for you, then you need to feel it in the heart. And like the Rebbe told me, after 3 dates, I met my wife. I wrote to the Rebbe. I said, I met someone very nice, and it's a good, but I don't feel any different than hanging out with my boyfriends. And I was told that when you're going to get married, you're supposed to feel different about, you understand, I never met a girl before. I never dated it was my first time that I met a woman in a date situation. So I asked the Rebbe, what should I do? You know what the Rebbe told me? First of all, the Rebbe answered me. How do you like that? He took the time to answer this young man's, Bacher 770 guy, who's elsewhere, learning Chassidus and davening and hanging out with Rabbi Yochanan and doing the Mivtzoyim. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe gets a letter from him and he says, I'll have a little mercy on you. I'll give you guidance, young man, young chassid. And the Rebbe said to me, continue going out. Lahamshich, the Rebbe's words were, Lahamshich lehisanyen. Right? Lisanyen means to interest yourself. What did I understand from that? First of all, I understood right away that basically the Rebbe wants me to marry this girl. Okay? But I don't have yet those additional feelings that I'm with a girl versus with my guys when we hang out, when we fabreng together. So the Rebbe said, Lahamshich, go out again. And go out another time. And that should evoke it. And guess what? It evoked it a little bit. I didn't go in with heart palpitations, I'm in love and things like that. No, I didn't. And Baruch Hashem, we're married going on our 40th year, Baruch Hashem, and everything's fine. I'm just saying.
You married she was the first person you dated?
The first person.
Yes.
The first person, because I was focused. I had already a job waiting for me in Marin County to be the Chabad rabbi. I had a job. When I was out there in 1983, in the summer, Rabbi Langer of Berkeley was talking to Rabbi Shema Schwartz of Westwood of UCLA. And he said, there's a group of people that would like to start a Chabad shul in the Chabad house, and they need a rabbi. So he said, I happened to walk into the office, the Shema Schwartz's office, 741 Gailey in UCLA, where the first Chabad house was, when he was talking to Langer. So I remember, like today, he took the receiver away from his ear, and we knew each other. He says, Dalfin, you want to go help some Jews? And I said, sure. So he says, Langer, I got someone for you. This was to lead a Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur service for them. He says, Langer, don't worry. I just found your guy. So I said, Shleima, where am I going? He says, I'll tell you where to go. You're up in Northern California somewhere, because we were in LA. It's exactly what happened. And the rest is history. I went there, we took a younger bacher as a kind of cantor. I played rabbi, he played cantor, and we had a wonderful time. And then he asked me to come back. So I said to them, I'll come back. I like you guys like me, and But I have a problem. I'm not married. I'm not coming here as a single guy. It ain't, it doesn't work that way. I need a wife. So they said, yeah, so why don't you go back and get married? I said, fine, but I also need someone to support us. I don't, we're coming out there. So they said, fine. We are going to raise funds enough for you guys to come and rent a house and have a place to daven and do exit. And you will take care of that, and you take care of finding a wife. I'm not telling you, Maisa Shehoya Kachoya. And that's how we ended up there. But all I'm saying, going back...
It's an unusual job requirement.
Yeah. I remember the conversation. I was talking from the payphone in Hadar Torah, which is on Eastern Parkway, near 770. It's a Baal Tshuva yeshiva. So I used to learn there because it was quiet, and I used to be able to learn quietly over there. And I remember talking to them and making this condition. You put together some funds, and I'm going to go find a wife. So when I came to my wife, I said, look, and I said right from the beginning, if you don't want to go on shlichus, even before we met, I said, I have nothing to meet you. I have nothing. I know exactly what I need to do, and if you're willing to go with me to California as shlucha, to do the Rebbe's work, we could talk. And she said, fine. And I tell this to my kids and my girls and others. They look at me like I've come for the moon. Today they look at me like, what do you mean? Is this a sales job? Is this a business? Well, it worked for me. It worked 40 years ago. Why can't it work? If you know exactly what you need to do. Now, be clear. If you go into something, you're not clear, you're mixed up, then it's a balagan. So when the Rebbe, so let's go back. So when the Rebbe told me, Lahamshich Lisanyin, continue, interest yourself, meaning to say is, you already have a position, you know what you need to do. Now you need to develop some feelings. So work on that. And I did. We went out for then, instead of 3 hours, 6 hours. I remember exactly where we went, and I remember the conversations. And I used the Rebbe's message to me to develop that. And, I think, and it was accomplished. It wasn't easy, but it was accomplished. Because I stayed focused to his words. Lahamshich lisanyin. So my job was lisanyin, to interest. Now, interest isn't a one-way job. If I interest myself in her and she doesn't interest herself in me, it ain't going anywhere. But all I'm saying is that Gabi, what we're learning in Tanya here, it has to begin with a Chabad, with a distance, with a relax, think. Again. Overthinking, too much thinking, is the Rebbe saying no. At the end of the day, you have to have a feeling in the heart, some feeling. You don't have to have heart palpitations of love, but you're with a woman who's going to be your wife. Not just being with a guy, in the sense of your friends. So the Alter Rebbe is saying, Avram, here, a very important point, that Krishma, as much as it's about v'yohavta, it's Hashem Elokecha, it needs support. What's the support? The intellectualism that precedes the Krishma, which is through the Birchas Shema. I think that's a very important point that we need to add as we meditate and think about daven, when we daven the Birchas Shema. That when we talk about the angels, and sometimes you say, why am I talking about angels? Who cares about angels? What does it have to do with me? The answer is the whole avoid of angels is to show us that sometimes they're in love of God. Sometimes they burn for God. Sometimes they shuckle for God. In other words, and why? Because sometimes they're meditating how God is close. Sometimes they're meditating how God is awesome. So depending on the feelings of meditation, that's the way they feel, and that's the way one group burns up for him, another group is silent, another group is varash, through koil, but that all comes as a result of the seichel, the meditation. Any questions? Okay, so
No
we'll.
questions, but I had a tangential comment when you were mentioning the tankistim.
Yeah.
Very tangential. But I was at a bar mitzvah once of friends of ours who are Lubavitch, and somehow somebody was speaking about Tzivos Hashem. And there was a question when the Rebbe started Tzivos Hashem, somebody said, it's so militaristic, and it's we want to encourage peace in the world. Why are you giving it this military-like flavor?
Yeah.
And the Rebbe said, in this generation, there's no respect for authority. And he wanted children to understand that there's a chain of authority, that children need to grow, and adults need to understand that there's authority. And that in a military structure, you have the sergeants, and you have lieutenants, and you have generals, all the way up the line. And it was very, very thought out, and there was a reason why he wanted to call it Tzivos Hashem.
Yes.
And I just thought it was a very beautiful and forward-thinking, a very subtle nuance. But
I remember the Rebbe speaking about it. Then there were private letters. I think it came from the Federation, the New Jersey Federation, who were looking to understand. I think that they were one of them. Maybe there were other groups. But the Rebbe explained this whole idea of the Tankistin and the Tzivos Hashem, which, by the way, is two separate times. The Tankistin started in the mid-70s, 74, 75. Tzivos Hashem started in 1980. But the letters that you're referring to is the Tzivos Hashem. What I'm referring to is when the Rebbe started the tanks, I remember like now, he spoke about this whole fighting assimilation and why he's using images of tanks and military. He spoke about it then as well by the Fabrengens. Chevra, I hope we understood today's shir and it will help us in our davening tomorrow morning.
And our marriages.
In our marriages, in our kids' and grandkids' marriages. I think we could use. I'm sharing with you what the Rebbe told me, and it did well. Zayt gesund. Have a great day, everyone. Shalom. Bye.
Yeah.
Take care.
Moshe.